Given that the late 2000s and early 2010s were the time to remake slashers from the 80s, I guess it was time to revisit a controversial Christmas classic. It's Christmas Eve, and local law enforcement are faced with a mysterious Santa Claus killer roaming the streets, murdering people in various festive ways. This is my review of Silent Night. The movie begins with a mysterious stranger making some Yuletide preparations before attending to his unwilling guest, Deputy Jordan, played by Brendan Fair. Since the deputy, who is supposed to cover Aubrey Braddimore's shift, played by Jamie King, she has to go to work instead of spending the holidays with her parents, played by John B. Lowe and Adriana O'Neil. While Aubrey's going around town, so is the killer Santa. I can't say his next victim doesn't deserve his form of punishment.
What are you doing, honey? Those are Mommy's heart pills. I need those.
You need to take me to the mall.
At the police station, we meet Brenda, played by Ellen Wong, and Deputy Giles, played by Andrew Sikon. Receiving a call about an inappropriate Santa, played by Donald Logue, Aubrey heads out to investigate. Let me get this straight. His name is Joe Epstein, and he's being creepy towards kids. In case you guys were worried that we might be straying too far from the original sentiment of Silent Night, Deadly Night, we've got Brian Richardson to fill in the role of Ominous Old Man.
Christmas Eve is the scariest damn night of the year. You see Santa Claus tonight, boy, you better run.
Aubrey gets called out to another complaint, which is a foul smell coming from an abandoned house. As it turns out, this is where Deputy Jordan got the Santa treatment earlier. Going upstairs, she also finds, well, most of a woman too. Sheriff Cooper, played by Malcolm McDowell, arrives and suggests that Aubrey go home, since this sort of situation could be triggering given that she lost her husband not too long ago. But she refuses. Tiffany, played by Courtney Jane White, leaves a photo shoot just in time to avoid the killer Santa who slaughters people there, and that includes putting a mostly unclothed woman through a wood chipper. As the police force gathers clues, Aubrey is convinced that whoever is killing people is doing it for a specific reason. This isn't just random violence. As more calls come in, there are more bodies and evidence. The police figure that the person they're looking for is a rather large individual with size 13 feet, dressed as Santa and wearing a mask. Given that they've got a literal Santa parade happening in town soon, this should make it really easy. Meanwhile, our killer Santa attends a sermon brought to us by one of the sleaziest priests ever, and that's saying a lot, Reverend Madeley, played by Curtis Moore, whom he proceeds to perforate. Since Aubrey has found a Santa that fits the police's description, played by the late Mike O'Brien, she approaches him with some questions. This initiates a rather demented Christmas story from him.
He said about killing them that was not. Still doing it too. Every year, a new town.
This is apparently seen as an urban legend by many. Carson here may not be the killer Santa they're looking for, but he's definitely a criminal. Since this interaction didn't go like she had hoped, Aubrey calls her father, who's a retired cop, for some moral support. Even though she fingered Carson as their killer Santa, now Aubrey's not so sure. While the police are trying to figure it out, the mayor, played by Tom Anico, is the next one to get murdered, followed by Tiffany and Dennis, played by Eric Berg. Cooper and Aubrey manage to arrest Joe Epstein, now believing that he's the killer. Cue rant about the depressing side of the holidays. Since Aubrey is yet again not convinced they have the right guy, she goes out and finds Carson. When he draws a gun on her, she shoots him. Afterwards, she realizes something.
Listen, the red and white gift box is a marker. He's marking his victims.
Aubrey wastes no time in heading for her parents' house to check on them.
What is this? Garbage day?
Apparently, a flamethrower does prove effective in a gunfight. Aubrey returns home to find her father dead and her mother locked in a closet. So now it's personal, in case it wasn't before. While Jim does put up some kind of resistance to the killer Santa, he still gets his halls decked. Aubrey returns to the station to combat the killer Santa, and ends up setting him on fire with his own flamethrower. She then rescues Brenda, and they exit the burning building. We then get this flashback sequence to fill us in on some history, such as the husband, played by Rick Skeen, from the story that Carson told earlier, being confronted by Aubrey's father, and getting both shot and set on fire. The part of the story that was left out was that he had a son, also played by Rick Skeen, who is the killer Santa. He's also still alive and headed to the next town to continue killing. And with that, the credits roll. I enjoyed the nods and callouts to the original Silent Night and sequels. They provided a more distinct connection to the franchise. There are a few pretty memorable kills, and I feel there's a good bit here to satisfy the expectations of a gorehound. We've got plenty of familiar faces here, and those who were part of the main cast did good with their roles. It's definitely Christmassy. I might not have even mentioned that as a pro if it weren't for some of the previous Silent Night films. Given that the film is an hour and a half, it doesn't drag, and it feels like it went by pretty quick during my first watch. It has enough going on to keep your attention. The small Midwest town vibe that was promised is delivered well. It feels authentic, and it's not hard to go along with. Though I do question the sequence where the half-naked model is running through the tree lot. That was filmed somewhere in California, wasn't it? The ending felt rather anticlimactic, especially the face-off between Aubrey and the Killer Santa. There was enough build-up that I thought it would have amounted to more. Also, the big reveal of who the killer is didn't hold any weight at all to me. I have to say that the CGI looked like it came from the Sci-Fi Channel. Very cheap and pretty ridiculous. Some of the kills were more funny than shocking, and I don't think that was entirely the intention. I am not a fan of all the shaky cam use here. When it's not being used, things look good, but as soon as we have the haphazard handheld shit going on, it makes it so difficult to follow along with what's happening to who. While the actors did just fine in their respective roles, I still feel the characters were too flat and dull. I kind of wanted to follow along with Aubrey, but I wasn't completely invested in her. For as bonkers and off the wall as the Silent Night franchise can be, you would think that would give the remake a lot of room to try things. Instead, it really feels like it follows a set of guidelines on how to make a slasher movie. With all that being said, I'm giving Silent Night 3.5 out of 10 bloody thumbs up. Something that I can't decide whether I appreciate or not is how this is both a remake and not a remake. It goes its own way, giving little winks to the original franchise, here and there, sure. But if I had watched this on its own with no knowledge of the films that came before it, I would have been quite confused by a number of things. It teeters on the edge of being an homage to Silent Night, Deadly Night, and just using the title to push the movie farther than it would have gotten without it. I think one of the major reasons why I wasn't able to enjoy this film as much as many other people is because of the choices made in regards to the main characters. A big reason why Silent Night, Deadly Night can be so compelling and entertaining is because of Billy. He's an interesting character with a lot of layers, and you feel empathy towards him despite the fact that he's the killer. We don't have that here. We don't have any connection at all to the killer until the very end. And, as I said, the characters we do follow aren't interesting enough. All the same, this is still a solid slasher movie. It carries that late 2000s, early 2010s slasher remake vibe that many people enjoy. There are plenty of good kills that earn it a thumbs up from slasher fans. It simply missed my expectations a bit too much for me to really get into it. I would recommend Silent Night to slasher fanatics, gorehounds, Yuletide horror enjoyers, and anyone who wants to see Santa fuck some shit up with a flamethrower. See you later. If you're looking for more killer Santas, check out my reviews of the rest of the Silent Night franchise. Thank you to my patrons Michael Musail, Bronson Rhett Wolf, Diana Moe, Sean Sheridan, and Raiders AK for supporting the channel.